Hi everyone, my name is Alina and I literally just turned 35 last week. That's why I decided to reflect a bit on everything that has happened to me over the past few conscious years. And I've prepared a pretty interesting video where I want to talk to you about health and share what mistakes I've made over the long service life of my body. I want to note right away that making mistakes is normal, and what might be a drawback for one person could actually be a benefit for someone else. So decide for yourself what works for you, and I'll be happy to join the discussion in the comments below if you agree or disagree with something. So today it's the top 10 mistakes I've made regarding my health. This is not the first mistake I want to talk about is avoiding slow carbs, particularly grains, buckwheat, rice and so on. Why did I want to highlight this point separately? Because I pay very close attention to my health, my energy, my ability to be productive, and my overall desire to do and create things. And I often notice that when I skip a meal with carbohydrates, I end up making up for it later with carb junk food and fast carbs. You might grab a chocolate bar, want chips, or someone else wants pizza or fast food. I've definitely noticed for myself that I don't crave any junk food at all when I have this kind of balance. That's why I no longer avoid grains, and more often I include them in my diet on a daily basis. This can be amaranth porridges. There's a lot of variety. I add a lot of protein like beans, mung beans, peas and quinoa in particular. So if you're lacking protein, grains aren't just about carbohydrates, they're also a way to get more protein. Point number 2 that I wanted to talk about is avoiding stress. At some point we start comparing ourselves to our peers. Many people will agree with me that there is a certain fear of facing stress. I have plenty of experience, but I wonder why I should go through unnecessary hardship or face problems again. Then the brain comes up with an interesting trick which I discovered while working with my psychologist. She asked me, why do you think you can't handle this stress? I mean, it's absolutely manageable. It could be meeting with friends or with people you really love, but who, strangely enough, sometimes behave in odd ways. And at some point, we start cutting this out of our lives a lot, even though besides the bad, there's a lot of good there too. And this stress, it actually affects everything. Very often we're like, oh, I won't go to the gym because I need to feel sorry for myself. But unfortunately, any movement forward, any self-development happens with contrast. It happens with stress. That's why this is a global point that concerns not only psychology, but also the physical state of your body. It's a contrast shower. It's regular physical activity, workouts, because muscle mass only grows with effort. And if you don't have muscle mass, you won't even have anything to support your vertebrae. Often during this transitional age, we think we're avoiding stress, but fortunately stress is still present. It also helps prevent your body from getting too relaxed and is always in good shape. Besides building muscle mass, let me give you an example with a cosmetologist. Everything we do there, practically rack lifting, lasers, mesotherapy, in general things that help our face usually look better. It's all about microstress. If we talk about joints, all these magnetic therapies, some needles and so on. It's all about directing our body's focus to a particular spot, and it starts sending more resources there to restore that area, nourish our face. It starts to glow, recover faster, and we see the result. It works the same way with any other activity in life, so don't be afraid to stress where you don't need to. Point number 3 is untimely cleansing of the body. Why? I want to talk about this separately. Nowadays, people seem to be divided into 2 categories. Some closely monitor everything, taking whatever is necessary or not, and others are like, oh, you're all just taking supplements. Yes, that's clouded thinking. People once lived to 100, and our parents never faced this. Yes, but only our grandmothers and grandfathers. So, in my family, there were 9 children, and only half of them lived to be 14. Because any illness and, well, a weakened immune system, there was no way to quickly help the body recover. Now we have the ability, thank God, to fight the flu, to fight various illnesses or viruses, and that's how we solve this problem. But before, unfortunately, there was just natural selection, and only the strongest lived to an old age. What do I want to say? Basically, if you look at how people looked at 35 years old in the past and now, I think that's absolute youth, and 50 is also youth. That's why it's very important how we take care of our bodies and how regularly we go to the doctor and at least get a basic comprehensive blood test. Visit the gynecologist and dentist, also see a gastroenterologist if you have any concerns, because nowadays they say that the gut is the second brain and the overall functioning of your entire body depends on it a lot, as well as your mood. I'm sure, by the way, that each of you has a story where someone was going about their life, not even knowing what was happening to them, that there were some changes going on in their body, and they would say they felt fine. The problem is that people adapt to absolutely everything, and we can't get into someone else's shoes and feel how they are feeling at that moment. That's why all we can do is at least monitor some changes in test results and address any deficiencies in time, which I believe is where half of all illnesses come from. Because at first the body doesn't have enough resources for something, and then where it's weakest, that's where it breaks. Here, I also want to mention point number 4, which is constantly drinking plain water. It's very trendy now to install reverse osmosis systems in apartments, some kinds of purifiers, filters. There are filters so strong that they completely remove everything from the water, not just metals, but also minerals and vitamins. No, nothing. In the past, people used to drink well water more often. The soil was very rich in minerals, and as a result, all of that would end up in the spring sources. By the way, I want to mention something here. I once met with one of my followers who gave me 2 tickets to Anna Karenina. By the way, it was a great musical. If you haven't seen it, you should. That was around 6 years ago. And after that, we went to breakfast together where she told me different stories about the troupe and the people who work in that theater. They have this older gentleman there, kind of like a grandpa, who is always encouraging them to drink healthy water. Supposedly, all the health problems of the current generation are because they don't consume enough micronutrients and vitamins with their water every day. Overall, I agree with this approach. Everything the body needs, it will absorb. Everything it doesn't need, let's say, will just pass through. So at least from time to time, buy yourself some healthy water. There are different kinds of Czech waters. I just don't want to include any advertising here, but just read about water that's enriched with microelements. It's also better to replace it with something else from time to time, but at the very least, don't constantly drink just water from a reverse osmosis filter like this. Look at this beauty we've got here. By the way, I was wearing these earrings in the store today. These are paper clips, which are actually a symbol of femininity for me. I talked a bit more about this in the store, but anyway, they're solid paper clips made of silver with gold plating. I love this collection because for me it's a symbol of femininity, unity, and really about making daily choices and being able to bring everything together. So if you've been looking for something like this, visit our website. Let's keep going. Point number 5 is taking your body for granted and thinking that you can recover or catch up on sleep the next day. I don't know, I'll just be stressed for these 5 or 10 years. I've heard this. What makes us think that after overworking for 10 or 20 years to achieve everything, we'll still have years left to live? Anything can happen, absolutely. Stress may never end and can have very harmful effects overall. All of us probably sometimes fall into a semi-depressive state, a state of feeling lost, frustrated, totally burned out. And unfortunately, if we think that we'll live our lives later, that later might end up being completely ineffective. Thinking things like, I'll just relax, let myself go, stop paying attention, or skip sleep, none of that works. There are scientific facts proving that sleep the next day won't restore the loss you experienced the previous night. That's why having a routine keeps you from being lazy. Some moderation in diet, regular quality sleep, and a strong focus on my body. These are the basic things I don't want to enter my 36th year without. Point number 6, which I consider important enough to mention. I make candles myself. I love having different scents in my apartment, but that's fine for the apartment. However, in the bedroom, I would recommend removing all scents. Because very often we overload our nervous system so much, and some scents can either energize or, on the contrary, calm us down. It's not for nothing that people have been using lavender on themselves or drinking lemon balm since ancient times and so on. All this strongly affects us. That's why specifically in the bedroom, I would recommend keeping all scents away from the bed area and ideally just moving them to another room. That's why I now keep candles and diffusers in other places. Why do I want to talk about this? Because, for example, my mom always has a huge number of creams, essential oils, and other things. And over the years, she started sneezing all the time and her voice keeps getting hoarse. This is a completely 100% allergic reaction. Now, wherever she goes, in general, it's because her body is overloaded. If she gets into a car where, for example, there's a regular diffuser hanging, she immediately starts coughing like this and her voice gets hoarse. But still, you want to, let's say, live your life normally and effectively, and at least let your body recover at night. And also, I think I don't even need to mention this, I hope, but regular daily airing of your apartment. Point number 7 also concerns nutrition indirectly. I just have some habits that are very hard to deal with over the years. I'm currently taking different nutrition courses, building some kind of new approach. I've talked about this in other videos, and of course I see a great response from my body. How automatically we live is incredible. It seems impossible to live any other way. We can't wake up without a cup of coffee. And in general, we have constant rituals that we don't even notice the harmful consequences of. For example, I haven't had coffee since October. But I started to notice that, in general, herbal teas or any drinks should be separated from meals. I want to make a note right away. If you have just one boiled egg for breakfast and wash it down with a cup of coffee or tea like this, there won't be anything harmful in terms of quantity. But if you have a rather large portion, I'm a tall person, I'm 1.75 meters tall, I eat quite a large portion of food and that's comfortable for me. And if I also wash it down with my favorite drink, like a large cup of chicory coffee, well, I don't drink coffee, but maybe chicory matcha or any other beverage. My stomach just starts to hurt because it's physically stretching, and you end up with a portion of soup or porridge the size of an entire pot. That's why now I try to wait for a while after breakfast or before breakfast, and I try to wait at least 40 minutes, and after that any drink goes down easily. Point number 8 is treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Now, we often talk on this channel about biohacking and preventive medicine. That is, medicine that tries to help you avoid getting sick. Some pathological diseases that would only be treated with radical methods. I am a 100% supporter of this. This approach is enough. Since an early age, I have been interested in nutrition science, and I pay very close attention to how my gastrointestinal tract works and how my body responds. And here I want to say that I am also a supporter of classical medicine, but even now the most advanced classical doctors, including my gastroenterologist and my gynecologist, they always pay attention to vitamin and mineral deficiencies in the body and regularly prescribe B and D group vitamins. I don't know, the same goes for magnesium. It's become so common. That's why it's very important to get some information in time and not to neglect your health. It's only when we get a diagnosis like diabetes or obesity, or when something like polyneuropathy starts in our fingers, that we realize it. This is happening all the time, even among young people now. I would say maybe it sounds a bit condescending coming from me now, but yes, I'm already a little bit in the 30+ category. That's why what we do every day, what we do here with you on the channel is so important. The fact that I'm constantly talking about workouts, about paying gentle attention to your health, I'm not talking about any specific obsessions right now, but rituals and routines and making daily choices in favor of what's healthy, in favor of a certain amount of stress that's gentle on the body will eventually pay off. I truly believe in this, and I wish the same for you. Yes, it's never about quick results. You might not see it on a daily basis, because we very often get used to our own state and it becomes completely normal. You know, it's like I recently saw a reel where a girl is sitting and says, "I'm 90 years old, Lum, but she looks about 30. And I was like, wait, what? Of course, that's attention grabbing. When I imagine myself being 90 years old and I'm sitting here now at 39, it feels like there's something not quite right with my body. I'll remember this as the most active years of my life and how great I felt. That's why valuing your health is an important factor. And making the right choice every day is not really about being broken or daily stress, but about respecting yourself. Point number 9 is physical inactivity. I have friends who I sleep until noon, I go to bed at 11, and every day I sleep for 13, 14 hours. I won't talk here about how oversleeping is just as harmful as not getting enough sleep. But very often we forget to even get up, move, and be active during the day. So we wake up, then immediately sit down at the laptop, do some work, maybe have a cup of coffee, go out to a coffee shop with the modern pace of life. And it seems to us that this is already too much for our bodies. We're working hard all day as it is. But it's very important to understand that now there are a huge number of vascular diseases coming from that. In the past, vascular diseases were supposedly not as common worldwide, but now it's not just us who have them. You can also include vein problems there, even in fairly young people, recurrences of varicose veins and everything else. If we examine this topic, for example, capillaries which lack muscles, so there's no pump to push the blood. And that's why all we can do is regularly shake up the capillaries. You can do whatever you want. There are different techniques like just jumping in place, simply lifting your heels and gently setting them down. You can do some exercises. You don't have to lift weights or go to the gym, lift heavy things or do professional sports, which, by the way, are also not about health. It's enough for us to simply keep track of how much we move on a regular basis. Like, I don't know, once an hour, once every 2 hours. At the very least, stand up and walk around the office, or walk to the post office, or walk to work. That is, for example, take the subway or get out of the car earlier and park it somewhere else. These challenges are always about giving your body enough activity. And if you don't want your organs to have poor blood supply, this is just the minimum we can do for ourselves every day. So hypodynamia, like when you just lie around for a week, nothing terrible will happen, but overall it's not a big deal. But then it will be much harder and much worse for your body to recover. That's why you need to do at least the minimum that you can. Wherever there's stagnation, problems always start, so it's essential to relieve tension from your veins and capillaries. And since with age, blood vessels generally become smaller and thinner, the body starts working on a cellular level. And plus, sitting regularly disrupts the intestines, so you just need to keep moving all the time. From here, I want to talk about the last 10th point. It's ignoring the work of the intestines. It's always about a stubborn daily choice. And if we think, oh, well, it's nothing serious, the butt isn't the head, as they say, it's not a big deal. Actually, I completely disagree here. If something hurts, if you feel nauseous, basically, the problem is equally important. It's good when you have your head, so at least you can make yourself do something, go to the doctor, and so on. Here, you constantly need to make choices to monitor what stimulates your body and your intestines in particular. Constantly. Keep track of what you eat, what causes you indigestion or bloating, if you have any discomfort in your stomach. There is nothing magical or supernatural here, no special pill. Any gastroenterologist will still ask you to identify your allergies on your own. There are many allergies these days. There are just foods that we consume on a daily basis, to which 90% of people actually have a reaction, and we start consuming them every day. At that point, you're no longer trying to find the source of the problem. So try to regularly change your eating habits. Try when you go to the store to pick up something new instead of what you bought yesterday. Maybe visit the seasonal section more often and try to diversify your diet as much as possible, of course, favoring healthy options. Stock up. If you eat snacks, then stock up on healthy snacks. Don't keep all the junk food at home. Try to get rid of it. Implement a strict diet structure, because when you set a routine for your body, instead of your body setting it for you, it starts working automatically. It doesn't have to think about when you'll wake up or adjust to your daily breakdowns. It will work automatically, and all the rest of the time will be dedicated to you, not to what your body needs or its problems. A twinge here, a twinge there. Let me know if you found this video helpful. But today, the main idea of this video is probably that your focus should be as much as possible on the basic needs of your body, not on your own everyday desires and sudden impulses. Because in a healthy body, a healthy mind will function properly, your head will work well, you'll be in a good mood, and your body will work for you, not the other way around. Here, it actually turns out to be a very interesting double connection. Yes, you pay a lot of attention to this, but because it works in an adequate mode and in a normal automatic state, you don't disrupt it. It will serve faithfully and reliably as much as is genetically possible. Well, that's all for today. Write it down. If you liked this video, I wish you a good mood and I hope I managed to get through to you. Remember that we are still hostages of our daily small choices and habits, and a lot of videos on my channel are dedicated to this very topic.